but the Met have shown time and time again that they can't be trusted. Whether it's policing black communities, whether it's policing women, the Met Police have proven that we cannot trust them from anyone of any walk of life, unless perhaps you're a white male, perhaps then you are safer than a woman.
Starmer's rating is falling rapidly, and Farage is becoming more and more popular. This is obvious because Starmer hates the people, and we cannot endure him. His government violates the laws and betrays our interests. Let's start with the first scene and see what really happens.
Good evening. Last night we majored on the Sergeant Blake case. I said how sorry I felt for him, a man who'd been put through hell, and his family too, over the course of the last couple of years. And yet, from the AOPC, and indeed the Crown Prosecution Service, no sympathy for him whatsoever, just sympathy for the family of Chris Kaba. Things get worse. You know, we learn now that the police officer faces possible misconduct hearings. We also learn that the jury wanted with their verdict, their unanimous verdict, a note read out which said they did not believe this case should ever have come to court, and yet the judge chose not to read it.
Sergeant Martin Blake was acquitted of the murder of Chris Kaba, but this acquittal did not bring him any relief. After the restrictions on the publication of information were lifted, it became known that Chris Kaba was a member of the dangerous Gang 67 and his criminal activities were well known. Kaba was accused of shooting a man in the legs in cold blood in a nightclub just 6 days before he was detained by police. If he had survived, he would have been tried for attempted murder and probably would have received severe punishment. But instead, he was killed, and now Sergeant Blake has become a target for revenge from criminals who want to avenge Kaba's death. A £10,000 bounty was placed on Sergeant Blake's head, and he had to leave his home to save his life. During the preliminary hearing, it became known that the accomplices of the Gang of 67 planned to kill a policeman in revenge for Kaba's death, and Sergeant Blake was forced to live in constant fear, fearing that they might harm his loved ones. To protect him, the judge extended the ban on publishing his address, photos, or any descriptions of his appearance to prevent any potential threats to his safety and give him a chance to start a new life without fear for his life.
But there was, unusually for me, sitting in the House of Commons this afternoon, a piece of good news, because this is what the Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, said.
When officers act in the most dangerous situations on behalf of the state, it is vital that those officers and their families are not put in further danger during any subsequent legal proceedings. So we will therefore introduce a presumption of anonymity for firearms officers subject to criminal trial following a police shooting in the course of their professional duties up to the point of conviction.
Well, in the light of what's happened, that must be a good thing. And you probably heard me, I was one of the loudest cheers there in the chamber. I don't want anyone to go through what this police sergeant has been through. It just seems to be wrong at almost every angle. And yet, not everybody was impressed.
The Minister of the Interior has made an important statement on the protection of police officers who risk their lives protecting society. New rules in England and Wales will guarantee the anonymity of armed police officers, which means that the identities of those who opened fire on suspects and subsequently faced charges will remain unknown unless they are convicted. This decision was made after the acquittal of Martin Blake, who was forced to endure hellish ordeals. After that, Blake received threats and his life was put at risk. But now, thanks to the new rules, he and his family can feel safe. It is important that police officers who risk their lives every day to protect the community and their families are not put in additional danger during any subsequent court proceedings. They deserve our gratitude and protection.
And what was astonishing last night was to sit here with a couple of, long-term police officers who explained to me that last year only 6 people volunteered to join the firearms squad. I don't know how you feel about this case, about Chris Kaba, about what's been said, but we do need good police, don't we?
We need good police, but the Met have shown time and time again that they can't be trusted. Whether it's policing black communities, whether it's policing women, the Met Police have proven that we cannot trust them from anyone of any walk of life, unless perhaps you're a white male, perhaps then you are safer than a woman.
The situation in the police has reached a critical point as many as 30,000 employees are missing. This is due to terribly low salaries increasing workload, which has led to a record number of layoffs. The once respected service is now in a deplorable state, and this is alarming. Given the rapid population growth and a sharp spike in crime, in order to somehow change the situation, an additional 50,000 police officers are needed. Last year, 8,000 officers left the ranks of the police of England and Wales, the highest figure in history. Moreover, 2,000 officers who were recruited through the advanced training program have also left, underscoring the scale of the problem. At the same time, at least 9 police officers apply daily to move to Western Australia, where they are attracted by attractive conditions, a starting salary of £47,000, free housing, a simplified procedure for obtaining Australian citizenship, and 6 weeks of paid leave. By comparison, police officers in England and Wales start their careers with a measly £21,000.
Next May, we have the English County Council elections. It'll be the first big, genuinely national campaign from Reform UK, and we are throwing the kitchen sink at it. But there are 1,352 Conservative county councillors out there whose seats are up for grabs next time round. Interestingly, a huge number of them genuinely agree with us and what we stand for. You see, the Conservative Party in the country is very different to the Conservative Party in Westminster. So I'm about to send a letter to all 1,352 of them to say, look, we are standing in every single seat in the English county elections. We will not be standing aside for absolutely.
Almost half of the members of the Conservative Party support the idea of merging with Reform UK. According to a recent survey, 47% of respondents were in favour of this bold merger, and people over the age of 50, as well as those who face financial difficulties, are especially actively supporting it. Nigel Farage has said he is ready to lead a new United Reform Conservative Party after the elections, promising to become the national opposition. He frankly admitted that in his current state he could not lead the Conservatives, but predicted that a new political force could be born after the general election. According to him, this could be a fatal milestone for the Tories, marking the end of their existence. Farage also expressed fears that the old party might split. According to the latest YouGov poll, Reform UK triumphantly beat the Conservatives, gaining 19% of the vote against 18% for the Tories, which highlights the impending changes in the country's political landscape.
You know in your heart of hearts that this is 4 years on from peak Boris, when the Conservative Party was doing well, and you know that the vast majority of you are going to lose your seats. But before I select the candidates, and our branches will be picking these by the end of November, before we get the campaign into full swing, I want to give those county councillors who really believe in the country, who understand and know that things need to be turned around because we're in such a state of decline, I want to give them the opportunity to come and join us and stand for Reform UK.
Britain is trapped by the two main parties, conspiring to accelerate our descent into the abyss. There were absolutely no noticeable differences between Labour and the Conservatives in this election. Both parties were caught up in the addiction to mass immigration and did not have the slightest plan on how to pull the country out of this deep hole. In the last 2 years alone, a shocking 2.5 million migrants have arrived in the UK. People are furious as they watch the slow but inexorable collapse of the system, from overcrowded hospitals to a catastrophic shortage of housing. At the same time, we are forced to pay record taxes in peacetime, while salaries remain almost at the same level, which only exacerbates their discontent. Nigel Farage is increasing the pressure on Keir Starmer, stressing that according to a new survey, voters are now much more positive about UK reform than they are about Labour. Farage is confidently ahead of Keir Starmer.
So, it's up to those councillors to decide what they want to do. We're going to stand in every single seat. We won't stand aside for anybody. It's a big chance for them to come and join us and to understand that it's actually irrelevant whether Kemi Badenoch or Robert Jenrick wins the Tory leadership contest. The brand is broken. It's done. You can't betray people consistently, election after election, manifesto after manifesto, without a massive price to pay. So here goes. I'm going to push them.
The Conservatives seem to have finally decided to destroy their party, and this is deeply perplexing. It seems that the Conservatives have decided to finally bury their party by inviting the former Prime Minister, whom they themselves called a pathological liar, to an election rally. If it weren't for Putin, it's hard to imagine what the election campaigns would have been about at all in the United States, Britain and France. His name has become a symbol, occupying a more important place in election speeches than the cost of living crisis, deteriorating living standards and crumbling social infrastructure. This is simply absurd. This clearly demonstrates the desperate situation of the Conservative Party in Britain. Unfortunately, the Labour Party is no better. Their policy differs from that of the Conservatives only in rhetoric, leaving voters completely perplexed and without hope for change. What do you think about it? Write your opinion in the comments. See you later.